Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Chris Pratt, apparently.
Oh no, he's here. Who let him in?
Are you Charlie Day or Charles Martinet?
I don't know what to do from here. I am
Seth Rogen.
who's playing Luigi?
Luigi is Charlie Day.
That's Charlie Day.
That's the one part of it I thought was fine. I'm like, that's pretty good casting. I would back that.
Is it? Charlie Day seems much too manic to be Luigi.
Yeah, I could see that, sure. Luigi does have a reputation for being kind of lazy.
Like, who are the guys? I mean, in Pacific Rim, it was him and the other scientist, Bern Gorman. That's the kind of dynamic I want in Mario and Luigi. So Charlie Day in this case would be Mario, and my buddy Bern would be Luigi.
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay, we got to sort it out. Let's just tell, who is it? Universal Pictures, or I don't know, studio.
Yeah. The creators of Despicable Me.
Let me pick up the hotline to Shigeru Miyamoto.
The people that brought us the Minions.
Is it real? No, I don't know. I have no investment in this movie, so just say whatever you want at this point.
Yes, yeah. A brief explanation for our listeners before we even get into the heart of the show here. Casting news for the Mario Brothers animated movie was revealed during the Nintendo Direct last week, and Chris Pratt is Mario, and none of us really know what to do with that information.
Yeah, it just seems bad. I mean, I'm not any less invested in the movie than I was before. I mean, who knows what I was thinking it was going to be. But I saw something like, oh yeah, Chris, great actor, really hard worker. He's going to be putting a lot of time in to make sure you get the Mario voice right. It's like, couldn't you just hire a guy who already does the Mario voice pretty well? Wouldn't that have been an option? But
yep.
I don't know. People love Chris Pratt. People love a crisp rat.
Yeah. I have no problem with Chris Pratt. I'm a fan of Chris Pratt. I like those Jurassic Park movies. I like Parks and Rec quite a bit.
You like the new Jurassic Park movies?
I don't mind them. I enjoy them. They pop up every now and then on television, and I'm like, oh, which one is this? I don't know. I can't tell them apart, but it's fun.
Okay. Well, here we go.
But anyway, I'm actually Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
I am actually Charlie Day in Mountain View, California. No,
I can tell because you're so
DJ
manic.
Ross. You can tell I'm Charlie Day. People make that mistake a lot.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. On this week's show, we're talking about Astro's Playroom and Actraiser Renaissance.
Oh.
Fancy French game.
Yeah, I know. We love the French games on here.
Actraiser.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Didn't realize you spoke French. Just like Charles Martinet.
Yeah, that's my Mario voice. Yeah.
French Mario.
Pierre.
That'd be terrific. Chris Pratt shows up on set day one, or like not on set, but in the recording booth or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I've been practicing my French accent all summer.
Yep.
Oh, no. Chris.
Womp womp. But I mean, other than that sort of weird bit of news, that Nintendo Direct last week, bit of a barn burner. It really just killer presentation on behalf of Nintendo. Lots of good stuff coming out of that.
What came out of it? I kind of caught a couple headlines afterward, but I don't know. What were the highlights for you? The new Smash character teaser. I'm sure. The using the Nintendo Direct to tease an upcoming Direct to talk about the new Smash character, and then using the Nintendo Direct to talk about it 3 times.
Yeah.
It's felt like they're just, stay tuned for more Directs later when we'll tell you the actual information that you want to know.
Yeah. They did it in Animal Crossing as well, which was actually kind of exciting, that there would be an upcoming Direct in October to sort of reveal the November update for Animal Crossing, which promises to include Brewster's Roost.
Are you sure you're not reading into that a little too much?
I mean, they showed it. They showed Brewster.
They showed Brewster.
They showed the roost. the internet has been just flooded with videos of people with their Animal Crossing characters standing in the place in the museum where the door to the roost will be next month.
Guys, please take care of yourselves. It's still got a while to go.
Make sure you're eating and drinking and bathing occasionally.
Yeah.
But more to come on that. I think Nintendo also has some other fun stuff kind of in the pipeline. They certainly aren't just going to do a whole direct to go. Brewster's here. Thank you for tuning in. So that is coming in October, apparently. What else? New footage from Metroid Dread, which is a mere week away. New Kirby game coming next year.
Yeah, look cool. It's been a while since Kirby has been around.
Yeah.
First time in 3D, I believe.
I believe you're correct. Yeah, that's kind of exciting.
I have to say, I don't even know what to think of the last Smash character at this point. Because there's just one left, as far as I understand. Like, who could it be? I mean, it's probably just going to be an enormous letdown, right? There's nobody monumental enough to who?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest, I have not kept up with the full list of Smash games, or Smash characters, so I don't know who's left to be announced.
Oh.
Reggie Fils-Aimé.
Reggie. That would be great. I would love for it to be Reggie.
I don't know who's left. Do you have thoughts on this, or are you just spitballing?
I don't know. I feel like Master Chief has been in the running for a while.
What?
I think that would be interesting because there's a lot of like Microsoft representation. And they got Steve from Minecraft, but that's probably the only one out there. I don't know. Master Chief is just another guy with 2 legs and a gun, though. I don't know if I need him in there. It's like I'm saying, I just don't know if there's anybody who can live up to the promise of being the final Smash character.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of weight.
Maybe Chris Pratt's character from Jurassic World. That would do it.
Who from Animal Crossing is in there?
They got the villager and they have Isabelle.
Okay.
I believe that's it.
That
seems like good representation, though.
Yeah.
I think that since Smash has proven that they are more and more open to non-Nintendo characters being in the game, that people really want to see somebody from elsewhere. So that's why you've got like Master Chief. People, I know like Doom Guy, the guy from Doom, was a popular pick for a while. I don't know who else.
No clue. I mean, certainly that just blows open my mind, and I can't think of a single one other than Master Chief now that you've said it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. It could be anybody. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, beyond that, there was a bunch of other sort of indie games that were kind of announced and looked kind of intriguing. So, I don't know. I was just, some of these Nintendo Directs can be a bit of a fizzle. I felt like this one just kept building on itself nicely.
What did they end with? Oh, it was Bayonetta 3, right? That's exciting.
Correct. Yes.
I'm not a huge Bayonetta fan, but I know a lot of people are just like, where is it? Where's the third one? And it looked like a Bayonetta game, so I think people will be happy for that one.
Plus, I mean, that's been sort of in the works for quite a long time, years and years, and had been very quiet for a while, and I think a lot of people were very concerned. So proof of life is exciting.
After this direct, I learned of the existence of a Twitter account that was a daily status update on whether there's any news about Bayonetta 3. and for the last, 4 years, it was just the same graphic of, Bayonetta sitting at a news desk. It was like, no, there's no news. And then, day of, they posted some new image where it's basically like, buh? So finally, I'm happy for everybody who is tirelessly maintaining that account. That they had something
Thursday
to
was
do.
a big day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of fun. I thought it, Nintendo Directs are generally sort of like, oh, cool, a direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was unable to watch it live. I usually like to tune in because they may not always be showing off games that resonate with me, but they're usually a pretty fun time.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that was exciting.
They showed off this new game, well, semi-new game, Actraiser Renaissance, which was a big surprise, I think, to everybody.
That was one of the big, and is available now in the eShop.
Yeah.
Which I love when they do that. That's exciting.
I like when they do that, except in this case, they announced both this Actraiser thing and a Castlevania collection, and they were like, "Go get them!" And I'm like, "Oh no, those are the two games that I want to play out of this thing. They can't both be available today." So it was very good, but at the same time, very inconvenient for me.
That's the Castlevania collection of all the Game Boy games, right?
Yeah, for the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Which are all pretty good. I was especially interested in playing that Circle of the Moon again, but I did not pick that up immediately. I will be getting to that eventually, or later on, I guess.
But Actraiser, it sounds like you got into.
I did pick up Actraiser, although before I get into it, I wanted to say two things. One is that I wanted to give people a heads up that this Friday, for TGS, Tokyo Game Show, there will be a special panel between Hironobu Sakaguchi, creator of Final Fantasy, and Naoki Yoshida, producer director of Final Fantasy XIV. They're just going to be chatting, doing a little panel, one-on-one.
Wow.
And the title of their panel is The Appeal and Potential of RPG. Sounds great. Sounds like, what an unusual thing to get these guys together. But it sounds like they're just going to be chatting about RPGs. Who knows where that conversation will go.
That could be exciting.
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't mention it otherwise, except they said that it will have a live English interpretation. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. So instead of reading about it, like reading the post-session translations afterwards, you can actually kind of tune in and follow along. So I wanted to give people a heads up. Nice. That will be this Friday on the TGS official channels. I think they're on like YouTube, Twitch, all that stuff. Around 5 Pacific, I believe. I'll have to double check that because it was in Japan time. But I will put a whole link to all this stuff in the show post at VGHangover.com if that sounds something you're interested in.
Cool.
I'll definitely be checking it out. Oh, and there's this note here that says, please note there will be no new information about the Final Fantasy series announced during this broadcast. So temper your expectations. It'll just be these two guys chatting about stuff they're into.
Nice.
Still should be pretty entertaining.
Just chatting about Mario movie casting news.
Yeah, right. Just complaining about Chris Pratt and who they would have selected to play Mario.
Right, exactly.
Oh, and the other thing, also Hironobu Sakaguchi related. After our discussion last week about Fantasian and how I was having I was feeling like super bummed out that I was just playing on my phone, right? The more I thought about it, I just got more and more distressed about this. So I bought an Apple TV.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't know, this is the greatest. I don't know if I recommend doing like everybody go out and do this for this game, but I was just, the more I thought about, seeing this game through to the end on like a 4-inch screen with little phone speakers, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. But I bought one of these things. I hooked it up to my TV. It's got all my like phone games on it now. And since then, I've just been playing a ton more Fantasian, and it is terrific.
Oh, cool.
I can use a controller. I can actually see the detail on the little like hand-constructed dioramas and all the backgrounds and everything. I can tell what all the different characters look like because they were so small on the screen before.
What a treat.
I know. Imagine if you could just see what was going on in a game. And I've got the soundtrack coming out of real speakers, which it's a Uematsu soundtrack. Sounds terrific. So I just feel like, oh man, you're free. You're released from your iPhone prison. It's a completely different experience. It's really good.
Awesome. This is like a streaming box, right? It's like a Roku or a Chromecast or something like that, except it plays iOS games.
Yeah, it plays iOS games. That was partially how I justified it to myself, because I watch a lot of streaming apps. Usually I use usually PS4. I don't know how often you use the streaming apps on your PS4, but they are all terrible. So I figure like couldn't possibly be worse. at least I can use this as a backup streaming box if I end up not playing more than one game on it.
Yeah. No, I have a smart TV that has like Roku built in, so it's got all of that stuff.
Yeah. My TV, not very smart, but at least I have this box now.
Dumb TV. It's smarter now. There you go.
Yeah. Smarter, you know.
Cool. Well, good for you. That's exciting.
Yeah, so very excited to be able to play that game in a slightly better, or in a much better sort of format. And as we were mentioning last week, lots of other games on Apple Arcade that I think are pretty compelling, and I may have just otherwise overlooked at the thought of having to play them on my phone. So now I'm looking forward to getting into some of those as well.
Cool.
So I swear it's not just for Fantasian. It's for other stuff.
Just a whole... Doors are open on a whole other room full of games you need to play now.
Yeah. Feeling a little impulsive, but still, just really into Fantasian.
Good for you. Treat yourself.
Yeah. Much cheaper than buying an iPad, so that worked out pretty well.
You just use the TV you already have. Nice. There you go.
Yeah.
So, Actraiser Renaissance.
Actraiser Renaissance. I don't know if you've heard of the original Actraiser. It was a Super Nintendo game. One of my favorites, incidentally. Just a real weird game. I mean, a lot of games were real weird back then. But I feel like this one is still especially weird.
That's the context I know it in, is that you like it a lot and it's a weird game.
Okay, I mean,
so
that doesn't really narrow it down.
No, I think I confused it a lot with God Hand, which I know is also weird.
God
and you
Hand.
Like a lot.
Yeah, no, yep. That also fits both of those descriptors.
Yes, both are games I've never played and have really only heard about from you. But those are the two things I sort of remember about both of them.
So I don't know how true this is for everybody, but I feel like my exposure to this game was I would always see them playing it on Nickelodeon Arcade, on Nick Arcade, which was an old kids game show where they would play video games. And one of the games they would constantly go back to was Actraiser. And when they played it on a show, it looked like an action platformer. You were this kind of knight-looking guy with a sword, and you would slash up monsters. Pretty standard sort of video game fare. I was like, that's cool. Eventually I went and checked out, I probably rented it from Blockbuster or whatever, because I wanted to play that game. They're always playing on Nick Arcade with the guy with the sword. And sure enough, yeah, that's how the first level starts. You're basically... It has kind of an interesting backstory, actually, in that you are essentially God, referred to in this game as either the Master or the Lord of Light. And basically, you lost a battle with the devil and all of his lieutenants hundreds of years ago. And were forced to go into slumber. And since then, the devil has just been having a field day on Earth. Just like ruining everything and making the people's lives miserable. So one day you wake up, you're awoken by this angel, this little, stereotypical cherub-looking guy. And it's just kind of catches you up to speed, says, hey, the devil's kind of making trouble down on the planet. You are, the almighty. The people have kind of lost their faith in you, though, so it's up to you to go down to the planet and take out some of these monsters, restore the people's faith in you, and eventually go and beat up the devil a little bit. So you go down there and you fight all these monsters, and at the end of each level, there's sort of a big mythical boss figure. Like you fight a Minotaur, and what's the horse guy? A centaur, and all these sort of notable mythological figures. It was like God of War back in the day, and it's cool. It's a good action game. But what really threw me when after you finish the first stage is you go back up to your little sky temple. And the angel is like, all right, you cleared the evil influence in this area, so now the people can return and, build a settlement. And at that point, it just turns into Sim City, basically, where you have a little 2D map, and you have to guide people around to build houses and, clear out obstructions using your divine miracles and keep other monsters at bay as they're trying to rebuild the city. And I was like, oh, what is this? And this is, this just speaks to how weird video games were back then, where I barely batted an eye that this was in here. I mean, it was surprising. And very atypical. But on some level, I was like, oh, sure, this is just where you play SimCity in between like action stages in this game. So really cool concept. Really enjoyed. I ended up like every time I played this game, I'd be all about the sim sections more so than the action sequences, which is really weird considering a lot of what they show off is just the action sequences. But anyway, flash forward to this Nintendo Direct. And they just reveal out of nowhere that they've made a remake of this thing called Actraiser Renaissance. And after I get over my just shock, I started sort of looking at it and just going, oh man, they remade another classic video game. How good could this possibly be? Because this is just my brain coming off of, we had that terrible Crystal Chronicles remake last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think very recently some other studio tried to do something that they were touting as like a spiritual successor to Actraiser. It was like Soul Survivor or something like that. I don't know if that's the title, but that was also supposed to be not good.
Mm.
And in fact, when they actually, like when Enix or Quintet or whoever the developer was on this tried to make a sequel to Actraiser themselves, they messed it up in that they just removed the sim section entirely and focused only on the action platforming, and everybody was like, guys, you what happened to the city section?
It's only half a game.
Yeah, so just a lot of failed follow-ups to this game out there.
I was going to say, has Actraiser kind of been dark since the 90s? And everybody's been hungry for it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's also been fine because it's just existed, like, I think it came out on the Virtual Console. I don't remember if it was on the, the Super NES Classic or the online thing. But, like, there's been periodic access to it, and everybody still remembers it very fondly. But I don't think anybody ever expected to get a remake like this. It feels like, I don't even really know where to get started on describing it. I mean, I'll just get to the point. It's surprisingly good.
Oh, excellent.
After a few hours of playing it, it's not a total disaster, as I was fearing. It opens up and you've got the same sort of opening stage, very similar layout. I think it's, more or less 1-to-1, so pretty faithful recreation of the first level. You fight the boss, and then you go down to the SimCity section, and this is the area of the game where it feels like they've made sort of the most revisions. And if you had just told me that they were like, yeah, we're going to have the sim sections, but we're going to change it up a little bit as well, I would start to panic a little bit and go, all right, I'm sure you have good intentions, but let's not forget what happened with Actraiser 2. But in this case, it really feels like they've preserved a lot of, basically most of the entire simulation gameplay from the Super NES version. But they've expanded it a little bit in that occasionally you will just do kind of an RTS sequence, like a real-time strategy or semi-tower defense sequence, which, again, if you had just said, oh, we added tower defense to it, I would roll my eyes a little bit. But it kind of works in this case because you still build up the city, but now you have the option to place little fortifications around once your citizens gather enough resources. And then it'll switch into a kind of an alternate mode, like an RTS mode, where monsters will spawn out of the monster lairs. And in this version, they've added a little each city has, it seems like they will have a champion character. So in this first area, you have this guy who looks like a Roman centurion or somebody who you can guide around. So while your towers are attacking some enemies, if some area needs a little extra attention, you could just order him to go over there and get into a skirmish with people. And also you still have your divine miracles. So, if there are monsters coming from one direction, your champion is busy, you can just go down and hit everybody with a lightning bolt or an earthquake or something like that. So a lot of little interesting twists over it just being a straight tower defense game.
Cool.
The action sequences are largely, the action sequences in the original weren't unbelievable. So I feel like even then it still didn't need a lot of improvement though. because really everybody's here for the sim sequences. But they've made a couple notable additions. One is that you have a few different combo attacks that you can do. And then what's especially good is you have a backstep, which is great because in the original, your guy wasn't especially mobile. And it's not the easiest game. It's just a little bit on the challenging side. So having this really quick evasion move that you can do is super helpful.
Nice.
It's been really good. There's also just a difficulty setting that you can change at any time, or I think anytime you can go back to the Sky Palace, you can just turn it down to easy if you want, which gives you infinite lives. Or you can put it on hard difficulty if that's your thing. So that's very nice. I always like to see that in a game. Just flexible difficulty setting.
Cool. And that's sort of a delicate balance when you're kind of remaking an old game too, because I think there's a presumption that those, some of those classic games are a little tougher. So you start monkeying with that formula too much, and I think you have a potential to lose the people who kind of hold that dear.
Yeah. Overall, though, I'm very happy with it. I mean, they didn't ruin it. That's the key thing. It's still playable. It's still really good. It follows the sort of progression of the first one pretty well. Although they have made some additions, like on top of that, the RTS mode. Like I said, you have this champion character, and along with that, they've added kind of a little more sort of storyline to each area, which is fine. It definitely adds a lot to it because in the original, the story sections, there was not a lot going on. I mean, it was a lot of like the angel sort of making snide comments at you whenever you'd get back from visiting with the mortals down below, and it would be a lot of the angel making observations like, oh, I don't know. It was just stuff like, oh, just look at how these people down there, struggle with their daily lives, and so fortunate for them that we're here to offer our like divine guidance so they don't all just eat each other or whatever. but a lot of musing on like human nature and that sort of thing. And there's still a lot of that, but in this version, you also have these like champion characters who I kind of like. I've been surprisingly interested in their sort of backstory, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with them. But yeah, like I said, a lot of it follows the original game pretty closely. Like you go down to the original, like the first area that you would visit in the original game, and you do kind of the same thing as you like help them rebuild their farms, and you build a bridge, and then the Minotaur appears. You have to go fight that guy. So it's very familiar. I think that if you're a fan of the original, it's definitely worth revisiting cool. Just to see like this game with a different coat of paint on it.
What a weird kind of out of the blue thing.
Yeah. Like I said, they didn't ruin it. I like that's all I want. It's a great excuse to go back and play a little more Actraiser. If there's one complaint I have about it, it's that like the art is not as good. And by that I mean like in the action sequences, I felt like the graphical clarity was much better on the Super Nintendo version. And this one, everything seems just so lushly illustrated and kind of like super saturated, and like there's a lot of atmospheric effects where you got like god rays coming in from the background and everything is glowing. It can be a little much. It's a little it can be a little painful to look at sometimes. And then on the in the simulation sections, they don't really have the same sort of like super simplified kind of cutesy look that the Super Nintendo version had. And where that's most notable is like all the little the monsters that pop up on the overworld are now illustrated more like, I don't know, like some pulpy fantasy novel. They're just like these super gross, like skeleton, like or like skull adorned bats and very just weird looking dragons. Whereas on the Super Nintendo, they were basically, like little Zelda enemies, kind of stylistically, just kind of weird and abstract and a little cute, which I kind of miss.
Yeah.
But it's not a deal breaker for me, I don't think. I mean, the original Actraiser still exists. I can go play it whenever.
Right, exactly. Nobody takes that away from you.
Yeah, but I think this, if for people who have never played an Actraiser, this is a great way to check it out. I don't know where you can actually currently play the original one unless you've got like a Wii hooked up. But what a cool way to sort of introduce people to this game.
Cool. And you said this was an old NX game before the Square merger, right?
Yeah, I believe so. It was developed by Quintet. And then published by NX. But yeah, that studio did a lot of really cool stuff back then. I hope maybe we'll see some more of their stuff dragged out of storage. Maybe not necessarily like getting this whole treatment, but it would be great just to get, the classic games thrown up there on one of the eShops or something.
Right. Who did the remake?
I don't know. That would be a good thing for me to look up.
I'm sorry, asking you questions that you don't know the answer to.
No, it didn't even occur to me. I was just like, let's see what this is about. Oh, it's good. Well, that's fine. I don't need to know anything more beyond that. I can tell you, though, that they had the original composer on board, Yuzo Koshiro, who is just, a legend in the game music community. So this has, first of all, you have the option to use the entire classic soundtrack, which is terrific.
Oh, cool.
But they've pretty much like reorchestrated the entire thing and done new arrangements of a lot of the classic songs. Everything sounds great. Occasionally I'll go into an area and there'll just be an entirely new song that he wrote for it. I was just like, wow. I did not expect sort of this level of attention to this game, but it's terrific.
Great.
That was one of the like real hallmarks of the original. Just the soundtrack is kind of legendary. So getting it back in this enhanced form is just sort of going the extra mile.
Well, cool. Well, it sounds like it was done with a lot of sort of admiration and appreciation for the original.
Yeah. No, it's really good.
Good.
I recommend people check it out. Just a real weird sort of mix of genres. I believe it's out on Switch and PS4 and maybe even iOS. That's weird. Yeah, playing it on PS4, everything seems fine.
Excellent. Well, I can say that I treated myself last week to a new piece of technology as well.
Oh, did you get an Apple TV?
I did not. No, I got a PS5.
Oh,
yeah.
They made a fifth one?
They did. They did. Yeah. You would not know it. You really can't like just walk into a store and find them, or nobody has them. So it's it's a pretty exclusive thing. I'm pretty cool because I have it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say. Well, sounds cool. No, but in seriousness, I know you've been trying to get your hands on one of these for a while. So
yeah.
That is cool. So congratulations.
Thank you. I think I've said it here on the show. I didn't really feel compelled to get one until Ratchet and Clank came out in June. So I started kind of looking in earnest in early June, thinking, oh, it won't take me 4 months.
Certainly not. Not until mid-September.
I'll get one just in time for Ratchet and Clank's release. And that didn't happen, obviously. So it took a number of months and a lot of like asking people who had them, how did you get it? Incidentally, if anyone's curious, how did I get it? I followed a person on Twitter who somehow knows when stores are going to get PS5s in stock and put them on sale, and subscribed to notifications. And so every now and then I would get a text message in the middle of my workday that says, this person on Twitter says that Walmart or Target or Best Buy or somebody is going to have a handful of PS5s you can order shortly. And I tried to jump on as many of those as I possibly could and did not have any success until just recently.
Was this Wario 64?
It wasn't. No, it was.
It
and
wasn't
I don't remember.
Wario.
I don't believe it or not. Wario's tough to sort of have notifications on for because he tweets so much other stuff.
That's true.
That like I didn't need to know that. I don't know. Pick a game was $5 off somewhere else. I don't need that push to me on demand. I really just need to know when Target has PS5s. So I found a Twitter account who did that pretty reliably. I don't remember it in my head. I will look it up, put it in the show notes for you guys, I promise. But yeah, kudos to whoever runs that thing for helping me get a PS5 finally.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, I get these emails from time to time from Sony. I don't know why. I guess I subscribed at some point where they're like, you have the special opportunity to buy a PS5 this week. If you show up at the correct time at the Sony store.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of at the place you were in, like, before June, where I'm like, I don't know if I need one immediately, because there's not a whole lot I want to play on it. But just the fact that you can't get one kind of makes me think, like, oh, maybe I should get one. Yeah. Just in case. Who knows?
Right, exactly. What if, like, the PS6 comes out and nobody got a 5 yet? What does that mean?
What does that mean?
So, so it's exciting. I got one finally, hooked it up. We'll get to Ratchet and Clank eventually. I'm still trying to wrap up Psychonauts 2. I'm in the home stretch on Psychonauts 2, which I adore, and I'm trying to sort of consume slowly and deliberately, so I sort of stretch out my enjoyment of the final act. And then I want to hop into Deathloop, which is a current gen, I guess now, exclusive, and Returnal at some point, which probably is going to be too hard and I will complain about.
You can just skip Returnal, it's fine.
It looks so cool, though.
Just save yourself the anguish.
And yes, of course, Ratchet and Clank, waiting for me to play it.
So you're going to play all these other games before Ratchet and Clank?
No, that's not the intended order. I have a copy of Deathloop now. I just have not gotten Ratchet and Clank yet.
Oh, okay. Right.
But, I can go to the eShop and get a copy of it in 20 minutes.
I was impressed. You were saying, like, I can't wait to play Ratchet and Clank, but here are all these other games.
Here's all these other things that are not Ratchet and Clank. I kind of didn't want to play Ratchet and Clank and Psychonauts kind of simultaneously. I felt like I wanted to sort of divide them a little bit, put a little space between them. I mean, they're two very, similar kind of approaches to gaming, I think. Platformers.
Right.
So, yeah.
How about a little Actraiser Renaissance in there?
Too much of a good thing, really. So while waiting to set up my PS5 and waiting for Deathloop to install and waiting for the firmware update to install and all the other stuff, I got a little pop-up that said, hey, Astro's Playroom is on your PS5 and waiting to be played. It's preloaded for you. You should check it out.
That's like the pack-in thing, right?
Yeah, and I remember hearing about this. Apparently there was a PSVR game featuring Astro, this little robot. That
was the game where everybody was like, this is the reason to buy a VR headset. And that's why everybody bought VR headsets, and everybody has them now.
Cool. I'm glad that finally happened for them. This is I don't know if it's a sequel to it, but it's another Astro game. It's not in VR. It's just a cool kind of 3D platformer that you can kind of barrel through in a few hours. That is kind of ostensibly a thing that is going to teach you about kind of, how cool is your PS5? And these are some neat things that the fancy new controller that comes with your PS5, the DualSense controller, can do. As it turns out, Astro's Playroom is a much more exciting and fun and creative video game than it really needs to be. It is very much a platformer in the vein of Ratchet and Clank or in the vein of Psychonauts 2, except you're essentially playing this tiny little robot who is just running rampant inside your PS5 is what the hook of this thing is. You have like a hub world. You can go off into like, the hard drive jungle or GPU springs or things like that. And all of the aesthetic of that area, the biome essentially sort of like conveys something related to that unique feature of the PS5. And while you're there, Astro will have a number of sort of platforming challenges and collect little artifacts and things like that, that all sort of reveal cool new things that your controller can do. So it's been kind of interesting to sort of see the links that Sony is going through to kind of show off the new controller and show off the PS5 by using this actually sort of surprisingly fun in its own right video game to do so.
An interesting approach to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's ever been, hardware that really necessitated having its own sort of tutorial to it. But it feels like they just packed so many weird things into this controller that maybe it justifies itself.
Yeah. The only other thing that I was trying to remember geez, remember when video game consoles used to come with a game? The only one that I remember sort of in recent history that came with a game that I thought really sort of did a lot to kind of show off what the console could do because it was a fairly new concept was Wii Sports. Yeah.
Good example.
Which was a pack-in, which came with every copy of the Wii, which was probably the game a lot of people like bought their Wii to play with.
Yeah.
So I really felt like that was one of those things where it's sort of like, oh, cool, look at all the motion control stuff you can do by sort of simulating all of these sports games, essentially, bowling and baseball and stuff like that.
Yeah. And here I was thinking of Face Raiders on the 3DS.
At the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, exactly.
There's Face Raiders. Astro's Playroom is cool, cute, charming. It does kind of all those things that you want a mascot platformer to do. It puts up a little bit of a challenge with some of the more difficult to progress through areas where you're trying to do a lot of kind of like running, jumping, double jumping, triple jumping, using bouncy pads and things like that. Again, if you've ever played a Mario game or a Ratchet and Clank game, all of these things will sort of feel familiar to you. You are collecting little bits of like Sony memorabilia. Essentially, you're collecting little artifacts from God of War and Uncharted and Parappa the Rapper and stuff like that, and you take them all back to your central hub. And there are these sort of tower displays for every PlayStation generation that have kind of their corresponding controllers and what the disc or cartridge look like from that, and was there a portable for that generation. So you're essentially kind of assembling a Sony museum by collecting.
The portables don't get to be their own generation.
They don't get to be their own generation. No, they correspond with the console generation that they came out in.
Interesting.
So I've found the PSP so far. I've not found the PS4. PS Vita. But there are also a bunch of really fun and weird kind of peripherals that I've never seen before, and memory cartridges and things like that have evaded me. And there's like a camera attachment for the PSP. And I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing. I've never heard of that.
I was watching somebody stream this, I think, and it was just surprising to see how many weird attachments they made for the PSP in Japan, because I was like, oh yeah, it was actually pretty popular over there.
Yeah. So it's fun and kind of entertaining in that right. To find all the tributes to little other PlayStation games is kind of fun too. So you find a disc for Uncharted. It's essentially the Uncharted artwork on the disc, but it's the little Astro robot hanging off the side of a cliff with his shirt half tucked. Yeah. And it says Dude Raider on it. So just kind of fun little things like that, where you go laughingly acknowledge that, oh, I get that reference. So at a secondary level, it shows off all the fun things that your controller can do, the way that it sort of has control over the way button presses respond. It's really been interesting to sort of see like just how much kind of interesting kind of haptic feedback you can kind of get into the sticks into the buttons and stuff like that on the DualSense controller. The way that the motors in it sort of simulate kind of walking over gravel or sliding on ice or running in the snow and stuff like that is really kind of surprising too, and adds a whole other level of just really kind of impressive kind of technological feedback that the controller does. So it's
just say it adds to your immersion.
It does immersed. Yeah, it feels like kind of a lot of tools that probably 90% of video game developers won't use.
That's my fear.
At its most basic, it's just a controller that feels really good in your hand, has a pretty good D-pad. The buttons aren't too squishy. It's just a good controller. But if you're a Sony first-party developer, you're probably gonna get a tap on the shoulder at some point and make sure that you put in some cool bells and whistles for the DualSense controller. And it's just kind of fun to play around with Astro's Playroom and kind of see what all of those things could potentially be in a bigger game.
So does the haptic stuff work pretty well? Because the controller is really like my only sort of exposure to the PS5 at this point.
Right.
And
you've not
I'm
played
not using it on a PS5. Okay, I don't get to experience any of the actual features. Although I did actually, I downloaded a thing that like activated the triggers, or it would let you customize them for, you know, whatever game you're playing on PC. So I got a little taste of what that was like, and it seemed cool, but it also felt like I don't want to be the one setting this up. Like the developer should do this, because the sort of the demo that the plugin I downloaded had was like you would pull the trigger, and like if you were firing a machine gun or something, the controller would sort of vibrate with the same rhythm that like as the gun was firing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I get it. But you know, there's a lot more. I've heard like in one sequence of this Astrobot game, it like rains or something, and you can feel the rain through the controller somehow.
Yeah.
Like is that cool?
It is cool, yeah. Is it necessary? No, probably not. I mean, the giant speaker bar in front of my television also does that too. But it's just, it's just one other kind of interesting thing, kind of one other like, oh, look at that. It sounds like it's raining, and I can feel like a little, kind of droppy thing happening inside my controller.
Just like when it actually rains on my hands.
Just like when I'm outside playing video games. Yeah. Yeah. And it starts raining. There's a couple of things that it does. There's one sequence where the little Astro robot gets into a couple of different suits that give him abilities, and one of them has a spring for a base, and it allows him to sort of, you lean the controller left and right, and it sort of points him in a direction left or right. And this is a 2D platforming section, and you pull down on the triggers to like coil the spring, and when you release them, he sort of launches himself in that direction. So you kind of pull the triggers as far as you want to convey how much he should jump. So if you pull them all the way down, as you're sort of pulling the triggers all the way in, the tension on the triggers gets even more kind of tight. So you can sort of feel like you're kind of like kind of squeezing in on a coil that doesn't want to go compress anymore. And when you let go of them, they bounce back pretty forcefully. And there's a little speaker in it that sort of does that kind of noise that makes it sound like you're coiling up a spring or a slinky or something like that. I thought that was pretty impressive. There's like a boost button you get at some point that has kind of a 2-stage level to it, and the controller actually creates the sensation of there being kind of a breaking point or a stopping point, where it feels like you have sort of 2 levels of compression on the triggers. So one is just sort of like a half push, and it's sort of your basic sprint. And then if you kind of like, you hit that little brick and then kind of squeeze a little harder, you push through it and draw the triggers all the way in, and you bolt into this massive sprint kind of fast forward thing. And if that's not turned on, it's just kind of squishy triggers. So it's, again, some weird level of control built into this thing that corresponds to sort of what's happening in the game that undoubtedly some programmer somewhere had to work very, very hard to implement. But it's just, I played a few video games in my day, and I've played with a lot of weird different controllers across multiple generations and stuff. And these are definitely experiences and sort of sensations I'm having with this DualSense controller that I don't think have been replicated on other controllers elsewhere.
I really like the concept behind all these things. Like whenever somebody comes out with a weird gimmicky controller, or even not a controller, but like, what if you had a 3D screen on your handheld? Like, you could definitely do cool stuff with it. But what kind of bums me out is when it's something that is not just like on every single platform. I mean, I understand the need to sort of innovate and stay ahead of the other guys, but I just feel like all these features that don't get immediately sort of adopted by all the other ones, like vibration got picked up pretty quickly, and analog controls just feel like, when they come out with the PS6, who can say whether they will still have like all of these sort of haptic features and the reactive triggers and all that. Or like Microsoft did a similar thing with the Xbox One, right? Didn't they have some sort of weird haptic feedback going on in their triggers last generation?
I'm not sure. I don't think I've had that experience with Xbox One controller, but
it just feels like, sure, it could be this totally new dimension of feedback that you get when you're playing a game, but if it only exists for one console generation, it seems a little disappointing.
Yeah, or one game, or you know what I mean?
Or one game, yeah, like worst case scenario.
I've not played any other sort of PS5 exclusive games yet, so I don't know how those use the haptic controls and the cool little vibration motors and stuff like that in the DualSense controller. I have to assume that Ratchet and Clank, again being kind of first party, is going to take advantage of that in a pretty big way. But it's just kind of, again, this cool thing that could be a demo, could be 5 minutes long, could just be a PowerPoint presentation that says, and sometimes when you pull on the trigger, it'll feel like a click of a gun or just something like that. But, Sony actually sort of commissioned and paid for this pretty expansive Sony PlayStation Museum curation tool that also doubles as a pretty fun 3D mascot platformer, and oh, by the way, teaches you all the cool things you can do with your PS5 controller.
Yeah, it's like the Nintendo Land of for the PS5.
Yeah, Nintendo Land was kind of fun. That was a cool. Yeah, that did some pretty unique stuff too.
Yeah, and similarly, it was one of the only Wii U games that did.
Yeah, that's true. I think, adoption probably shot that in the foot, right? I mean,
it certainly didn't help. It
became clear quickly that, there were not going to be a lot of Wii U games, that in fact the Wii U generation was probably going to be a pretty brief one. So yeah, certainly not a lot of developers putting resources into unique and interesting ways they can use the Wii U tablet.
Yeah, what a shame.
Yeah. I think some of that stuff kind of carries forward, though. You know what I mean? Like motion control in the sense of Wii Sports doesn't really exist anymore unless you're playing in VR, right? I mean, VR has maintained kind of that level of control.
Yeah.
But there is not a Wiimote equivalent for the Switch. It's just sort of like those things are built into the standard Joy-Con motion controls and an IR sensor, and some pretty cool vibrational things that those controllers can do too. So I think over time developers kind of iterate and pick and choose things that seem to have sort of lasting value, lasting impact on their ability to kind of convey something through a video game.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of crazy if you look at it that way. It's like the whole system where like so much of it was around the like either pointer controls or actually getting up and physically performing whatever you wanted to do in the game, and that just doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
Except in VR, like you said. Although gyros have stuck around, that's nice. I kind of like that more than like Rumble at this point.
Yeah. And have gotten really good. Like the gyros in the Switch Joy-Con are really, really good. The ones in the PS4 and PS5 controllers are really, really good and pretty sensitive and pretty good at sort of conveying motion. So those things were not great for a long time in the video game. So they've gotten to a point where it feels pretty good to use it. And I what was the one that did it? Did sniper controls with it or shooting an arrow with it? And I'm like, oh, this feels perfect. Every game should do this.
Oh, yeah. Man, forget the pointer controls. I mean, that was what I thought I was there for. But, aiming the stuff with the gyro, that's good.
Yeah. You're always at a bit of a disadvantage when you're trying to aim with a controller anyway. So just gives you a little extra fidelity, a little extra control, makes it feel like you're kind of a badass and actually pretty good at pulling off shots in video games.
Yeah. For a change.
I know. What a refreshing change. Super excited to have a PS5. I mean, other than that, sort of impressions of the thing, it's a really fast PS4.
No. Oh, man. They're just going to, Sony's going to cut your mic off.
I know. It's just, I haven't seen anything yet that sort of feels like, oh, geez, this is an experience I couldn't get anywhere else, other than kind of the cool bells and whistles with the controller. As I've been kind of surfing around and playing with the menus and installed Deathloop, and I was really sort of impressed with how quickly Deathloop installed and how quickly it downloaded the patch. It said there's a 2.5 gigabyte patch for this game, and I went, holy cow, that's going to take 6 days because and I have pretty good internet, but it would take a very long time to do that on the PS4. In 15 minutes, just patched it, installed it.
Wow.
I was pretty impressed.
I mean, you sort of joke, but that has been consistently just an issue downloading stuff from Sony's servers. Although that was a patch, right? It's not like you downloaded the whole thing off the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, I am gonna go digital on Ratchet and Clank though, so that promises to be a pretty beefy install. So we'll see how long that takes. I'll report.
Why are you going digital suddenly?
Mostly just because I want to see how long it takes to download it.
Okay, well, good for science then.
And I don't want to have to go to Best Buy to buy a copy of Ratchet and Clank and just order it from the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do it. You don't even have to leave the house.
I did get the PS5 with a disc drive, so I could, put in a plastic disc if I wanted to. That's how I did Deathloop. But just grab Ratchet and Clank and download that thing.
Excellent. I was going to say, the first, 6 months to a year of a new console, generally kind of expected to be underwhelming. So, your first week was fine. You're just catching up with all the games that have been out for a while. But, next week or 2 weeks from now, better be amazing.
I want to see some of these load times because I have heard just sort of how insanely fast the load times are in kind of modern games on the PS5 and on the new Xbox and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see how quick it is to sort of zip around with video games.
Have you tried any of your old PS4 games on it? See how those run?
No, I unfortunately have not. You'll find this amusing. The disc I took out of my PS4 before disconnecting it to install my PS5 in my entertainment center was the Mass Effect game I was playing for the Backlog Attack.
No.
Yeah, I'm like, never finished that, unfortunately. And I'm not going to sort of waste the hard drive space installing a game that I probably won't get around to on the PS5. So. I gotta figure out what the first thing I'm gonna go back to is. I was worried. I want to make sure all of my game saves carried over, and the cloud save system in the PS4 is really good for that stuff. When you're hooking up your PS5, it actually asks you when you get a new. At least when I get a new Android phone, it says, "Hey, do you have an old Android phone? Do you want to move all your shit over from?" And I say yes, and you connect them both to the same Wi-Fi in your house, and 10 minutes later, if you're lucky, all of that stuff just moves for you. This is the first time I remember. Hooking up a new console and it asking me, hey, do you have a PS4? Do you want to carry over all your stuff? So again, you just connect both of them to the same Wi-Fi and it brings all of your game saves over. It brings all the little title cards for the games that you were kind of playing recently. It adds everything to kind of your in-game library so you can kind of download on demand. It just, kind of unifies everything into kind of a single seamless experience.
That's pretty good. I mean, first of all, it's just nice that you can play all those old games on the new console. I mean, that's a good experience as well.
Near universal background, backwards compatibility is a pretty nice luxury.
Yeah. I'm assuming it doesn't transfer the entire game over. You have to go download it separately.
Correct. Yeah. It makes it a little, like I said, it gives you the little kind of tile for it so that it's easier to kind of trigger the download.
Yeah.
And it, associates your playtime and your, save file and all that other stuff with it too. So it's a fairly kind of seamless transition from the PS4 to the PS5.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. I was pretty pleased with it.
I heard that the PS5, and we always talk about how much we like those, the little play history app on the 3DS.
Yeah, very much so.
Apparently the PS5 has something like that, or at least tracks your playtime. But the big surprise to me was that apparently the PS4 did this, and it just never showed you this information. But now, if you can look at it on your PS5.
Oh, I didn't know that. I have to find this.
That's just what I've heard. I don't know how accurate that is.
All right. I will have to explore a little bit. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's one of those things. That's one of those developers will pick and choose little elements from previous consoles or video games or controllers or whatever and just sort of iterate on them over time. There should have been a continuation of that feature from the 3DS, of the little play history tally tracker thing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, totally agree. It's kind of skipped a generation.
Yeah. It's back again.
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited you finally got one. I'm waiting for the day to come where I will say, now I will get a PS5. But who knows when that will be. I'm really hoping I can hold out for the PS5 Pro or a Slim or whatever. But I have no idea how it's going to play out.
Oh, man. seriously had to like reconfigure my entire entertainment center to be able to fit this thing inside one of the shelves.
Oh no, right.
Yeah. I mean, the PS4 is kind of a big boy. And I got one of the more slimmed down ones over time. I got the Spider-Man one that came out kind of halfway through the generation, the PS4 Pro. But it's still kind of a chunky thing. But holy cow.
Huge? It's like smaller than the PS3, isn't it?
It's smaller than the original PS3. It's not smaller than the Slim that came out late in the PS3's life.
Oh, okay.
I still have that.
I never really think of the PS4 as being like enormous. I mean, sure, it's a game console, so it's not tiny.
It's just a brick of a toy. But yeah, man, the PS5 is just a monster. Just freaking huge.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of people holding it up, and it's like the size of their entire torso. But it looks like somebody photoshopped it.
It is, comically large. Exactly. That's and it's not sort of consistently sized. It's not like one perfect cube of space that it occupies. Like parts of it are like wider and longer than other parts of it, so it doesn't fit nicely in anywhere. It comes with a stand, which is a bonus. The PS4 didn't come with a stand, so if you wanted to stand it up, you could. But it's like, where would you stand this thing? It's just a monster.
Yeah, you need a ladder.
You do, exactly. So yeah, it's the logistics of actually incorporating it into my little entertainment center without it sort of being this massive sore thumb was comical.
Okay, well, I've always just imagined I would shove it under my desk. I haven't actually. I should measure it and see just how impractically large it is.
It would make a nice foot warmer for you under there, yeah.
That probably would. Is it pretty sturdy? Can I just rest my feet on it?
No, because it's like weird and pointy in parts. It's not really it's not a perfectly smooth, like the old PS3 kind of had a little hump in it that would be nice to kind of rest your ankles on.
Sure. That thing cost me like $500 and I didn't go anywhere near that thing.
I don't think the PS5 is foot friendly. I have looked up the stock alert Twitter feed that I had used, and it is at PS5 stock news. So would recommend, if you are in the market, dear listeners, for a PlayStation 5, give them a subscription on Twitter. Make sure you hit the little bell so that you actually get push notifications when they post, because they only post when a store is about to go live with PS5 stock.
Oh, you're saying, okay, that's the one you want.
Yeah, they don't post like, hey, how's everybody doing this morning? I just had a really good beer or whatever. It's straight up, Target's going to have them in stock in 10 minutes. Get your credit card ready. So PS5 stock news on Twitter.
All right. Good luck to anybody who's in the market.
Yeah. Or I'll sell you mine for $700.
Oh, man. Great.
$900.
Yeah.
Nope, it's mine. I want it.
Yeah, might as well just hang on to it. Who knows when the next one will come around.
Right, exactly. They're pretty rare.
Yeah. It's like distressingly rare. I'm wondering if I'm ever going to be able to like upgrade my PC. Speaking of like component shortages. Like maybe they just don't make as many consoles anymore.
Yeah. Oh, well, because the reason that the PS5s are scarce is the same reason that upgrading your console would be difficult, because the microchips, is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Semiconductors.
Semiconductors, that's right.
Yep.
One of those
partial conductors.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
Well, I'm not really actively pursuing that, but thank you.
Not actually pursuing upgrading your computer?
No, I'm just kind of like, I don't want to deal with like, doing the whole follow all these people on Twitter thing and then these waiting lists.
Yeah.
It's not a life-threatening purchase I have to make.
You would just like to roll into a store or hit up your favorite website and have it arrive at your house in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ideal thing.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of waiting for it to get to that point. But that's what makes me think, like, what if it never gets to that point ever again?
What if it never ends? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. If people are sort of like forecasting the eventual like bounce back of the semiconductor industry.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a good chance that it may just go on for much longer than people expect.
Thanks. Cars too. Hope you got a good car, because those are all full of semiconductors.
Yeah, well, you got to buy one of those, the ones that doesn't have one. Just get one of those little $1,000 cars off of Alibaba.com, and you're set.
Just be very careful.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. They don't go very fast, so chance you'll be in a high-speed collision is low.
All right, you want to wrap this thing up?
I suppose.
Do you have further thoughts on the semiconductor industry?
No, I
No.
definitely don't. Oh, man. No, I mean, I do, but it's all just whining. So let's wrap it up. Let's do it.
I need cool toys. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com as well. We would love for you to join us on Discord. You can hang out with us, talk about video games and movies and Nintendo Directs, and what else were we talking about in there recently?
Tell us your dream cast for the Mario movie.
There you go. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about missing Bob Hoskins in that situation, and any number of other things that sort of come across our radar. So head to VGHangover.com for a link to our Discord and jump on the conversation with us.
Yeah.
We would encourage you to subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you can get a podcast, and help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah, it really helps us, add new listeners, grow the listenership. So Please tell your friends if you're looking for a video game podcast. Tell them to send us their dream cast for the Mario movie. Who knows?
Dreamcast. That'd be an interesting name for a toy.
Yeah. Oh, weird.
Write that down. I wonder if that's taken.
Yeah. We want to give thanks again to Hal Binderman for our intro and outro music this week. Please head on over to heavyviper.bandcamp.com. Check out some more of his stuff. Maybe download an album or two.
Awesome. We'll be back next week. Hey, it's Metroid Week next week. That's super exciting.
Metroid Week. Ooh.
First new Metroid game in 19 years.
Is that? Yeah, that's about right. That's terrifying.
I was so young.
Oh, man. No, I'm just thinking thoughts.
We'll be back next week. I'm Randy Dickinson.
I'm DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.